Puss in Boots by Charles Perrault. There once was a miller who lived and died a poor man. He had nothing to leave his 3 sons but his mill, his ass, and his cat. The sharing out was soon done. Why call in a lawyer? The fees would have swallowed up those few legacies in a moment. So the oldest had the mill, the second the ass, and the third, can you guess? The cat. The third, the youngest brother, was not at all pleased. There he sat in the dumps. If my brothers join forces, with a mill and an ass, they can make an honest living. But what can I do? When I have eaten Puss here, and made a cap from his skin, I will just have to die of hunger. The cat busily washed his paw, as if he were not listening, but he had taken in every word. Now, with a firm and serious voice, he spoke. "Stop moping, master. You are better off than you know. Just give me a little sack and a pair of boots in my size. The wood is full of thorns and briars, and you'll soon stop complaining about your legacy." The young man did not feel too hopeful. What could a cat do to help? Then he began to think. This cat had always seemed unusually quick and intelligent. He had remembered some of his cunning tricks to deceive the rats and mice inside the mill. He would hide in a sack of meal or hang downwards from his feet, pretending to be dead. The creature was never short of ideas. So Puss was fitted out with little boots and a bag tied with cords which he hung around his neck. Straight away he went to a piece of waste ground that was full of rabbit warrens. He propped open the bag, put some tempting bran and lettuce leaves inside, stretched himself out on the ground as if he were dead, and waited for some young and innocent rabbit to find the treat. The plan worked. He had scarcely lain down for a minute when something entered the bag, a little rabbit, not yet knowing the cunning ways of the world. Puss quickly drew the cords together to close the top and set off. Where did he go? To the royal palace, no less. Delighted with his catch, he asked to see the king. He was shown into a grand room where the king was sitting. The cat made a deep bow. "Your Majesty," he said, "I have here a gift for you, a fine rabbit from the estate of the Marquis of Carabas. He has sent me here to present it to you on his behalf." "Tell your master," said the king, "that I thank him, and I am pleased to accept his gift." A few days later, Puss went and hid in a cornfield. Using his bag as before, he caught 2 partridges. Promptly, he went to the palace and presented them to the king with the same message. An offering from the lands of the Marquis of Carabas. Again, the king was pleased to accept, and this time gave the bringer a gold coin for himself. For the next 3 months, the cat continued this game, bringing to the king some gift from his wealthy master's estate. Well, that was the cat's story. One day, when he knew that the king was taking a drive by the river with his daughter, the most beautiful girl in the world, I must tell you, Puss said to his master, "Now, if you do exactly what I say, your fortune is made. You have only to go for a swim in the river. I will show you where, then leave the rest to me." The young man obeyed the cat's instructions, though he could not imagine what good it could do him. As soon as he was in the water, Puss began to cry out at the top of his voice, "Help! Help! The Marquis of Carabas is drowning!" The king heard the noise, looked out of his carriage window, saw the cat messenger, bringer of all the presents, and ordered his guard to go to the rescue of the noble Marquis. While they were pulling the very wet young man from the river, the cat rushed to the carriage, saying, "Your Majesty, while my master was in the water, robbers came and stole his clothes. Stop the thief! Stop!" he cried out. but the villains got away. The king at once ordered his royal wardrobe officers to bring out their finest clothes for the Marquis of Carabas. The young man was a handsome fellow in his own right. Splendidly dressed, he certainly looked as noble as a lord in a fairy tale should look. The king greeted him as if he were his closest friend. The king's daughter, well, she admired him too, and after receiving several respectful but far from indifferent glances from the handsome stranger, she fell deeply in love with him. The king now invited him into the royal carriage. "You must join us in our drive through the countryside." Puss was thrilled to see his plan succeeding so well, but there was still much to be done. He raced on ahead, and seeing some peasants mowing a cornfield, he said to them, "My good fellows, I have some news for you. The king is about to pass. You are to tell him that these fields belong to the Marquis of Carabas. If you don't, then every one of you will be chopped into mincemeat." The king soon reached the field. "Who owns this land?" he asked. "The Marquis of Carabas," the mowers answered together. The cat's threat had terrified them. "You have some fine meadowland," said the king to the young man. "Your Majesty, this meadow never fails to produce a wonderful crop year after year," replied the miller's son. The cat's master had become a good pupil to his cat. Again, the clever puss went on ahead, and this time came to a field with harvesters. "My good fellows, I have some news for you. The king is just coming past. You will tell him that this land belongs to the Marquis of Carabas. Yes, if you don't, you will all be chopped into mincemeat." A few minutes later, the royal carriage reached the field. "And who is the owner of this land?" asked the king. "The Marquis of Carabas," the peasants replied in chorus. Again, the king congratulated the young man. The cat continued to go ahead, telling the field workers what they must say, and the king was quite amazed at the vast possessions of the Marquis of Carabas. At last, the cat reached a great castle. It belonged to an ogre, the richest ever known. Indeed, all the lands that the king had just passed through were his. The cat had already made some inquiries about the ogre, and now he asked the gatekeeper if his master would allow him the honor of a visit. It would not be polite to pass the magnificent palace without paying homage to its owner. The ogre received him as civilly as an ogre could, and told him that he could sit down. "I have heard reports of your wonderful power, and some I find hard to believe," Puss said, after thanking him. "They say, for instance, you can change into any kind of animal. An elephant, a lion even." "It's quite true," the ogre said gruffly. "And to prove it, you are just about to see me become a lion." And there, in place of the ogre, was a monstrous lion. Puss was so frightened that he leapt onto the roof. This was none too easy. His boots weren't meant for walking on tiles. At last, when he was quite sure that the ogre had returned to his own shape, Puss came down and confessed that he had been very alarmed indeed. "However, I have also been told that you can turn into a very small animal, a rat, say, or a mouse. Now that, I must confess, seems to me impossible." "Impossible? Just watch." And at once there was no ogre any more, only a tiny mouse, which went skittering over the floor. The next moment, Puss had pounced upon the mouse and devoured it. And only just in time, for the royal carriage had reached the castle. "What a magnificent building," said the king. "We must have a closer view." The cat was always ready for emergencies. As soon as he heard the carriage rumbling over the drawbridge, he ran forward and said to the king, "Welcome, your majesty, to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas." "Can this be? Is this really yours as well? I'm amazed. Well, from the outside, I have never seen anything finer. Now, if you please, let us see the interior." The king went first, the miller's son followed, taking the hand of the young princess, and they entered the great hall. There they found a delicious meal set out. The ogre had been expecting friends for dinner, but the guests, seeing the king's carriage, had been afraid to enter, and had gone away. How convenient. The king himself was now completely overcome by the wealth and charm of the young marquis. His daughter, too, he noted, was already madly in love with the handsome fellow. So after tossing down several cups of wine,
He turned to his host and said, "Well, Marquis, this decision is yours. Do you wish to be my son-in-law?"
The miller's son bowed low. "I accept the offer most happily," he replied. That very same day, the two people were married. The cat was given a title and a high position in the palace. He never needed to chase a mouse again. If he did, so well, it was just for exercise and for his own amusement. The moral. Reader, are you waiting still for a rich relation's will? Wealth's not all you can inherit. Money's fine, but so is merit. Enterprise, imagination, quick wit, sense, and concentration can lift you to the highest reaches, so this story seems to teach us. Here, Monsieur Perrault paused and smiled. "It's true," he said. "A clever child will note these virtues were the cat's, though master had the benefits. With Puss at hand, how could he fail? But his was the luck of a fairy tale. Today such cats are few, alas. Still, there's a road to Carabas, and what's the way of finding it? Be diligent, and don't omit to use, like Puss, resource and wit."